hit record so we can start recording. All right, recording is set up. All right, ladies, enjoy the training. I'm going to join virtually for you.
No problem.
No problem.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind just stepping across, then that way I can take my mask off a little bit. Sure. So thanks for joining today. As I said, I'm Patsy Ray. I'm a physical therapist, been a PT for 26 years doing Hoyer lift transfers. So today I'm coming into Always Best Care to try to record a in-service that will help you guys to reference in for the future when you have patients that need Hoyer lift transfers. We discussed a lot of times when you hear the word Hoyer lift transfer, you're like, oh my gosh, seriously? That's never a joy when you hear that word. But I hope that when you finish watching this video today that you're going to be like, yes, a Hoyer lift transfer. Because when you hear that, I want you to think of that as like an efficiency tool for you. A Hoyer lift transfer is meant to help you, but also to help that patient. First and foremost, Hoyer lift transfers should not be used on patients who are ambulatory or patients who can safely do a stand pivot transfer. If they can do that safely, then we want to allow them that mobility to do that. So these Hoyer lift transfers are going to be primarily for those folks who are bedbound. Talk about that bedbound population, that entails a lot of different things. Sometimes that pulls in patients who have joint contractures, you know, their knees, their hips, or their arms may be bent and in a stiff position contracted. It might mean that they also have dementia as well. So we're going to address that today and hopefully answer all your questions. We've got a bed, older model bed, that's going to be a good setup because you may frequently run into this yourself. This has the full-size rails instead of the half rails, and that makes it a little bit more challenging, but it's good because that's a real-life setting you'll run into. We also have a couple different slings that I'm going to show you. For those of you who've been around for a while, you know there's a multitude of different types of slings that go with the Hoyer lift. So the first thing I want to do is talk to you just about the basic parts, and then I'm going to show you a 10-minute video that's a YouTube video that walks through it, and then we're going to talk about that and demonstrate it together, okay? So the first sling that I have is probably the most common one you will find. It has these colored hooks to it, and I'm going to get a little closer so that you can see the different colors. So you have different colors on your hook. So there's blue at the shortest, then green, purple, and black. When you look at the sling, you can tell there's a soft side, and on the back side, it's rougher feeling and it has a tag. Always put that softer side against the patient's skin. That's where we want them because we don't want anything causing friction, creating a skin tear on them. The other thing is when you look at the sling, there's clearly a head to it, okay? If I lift it up high enough, you can see the bottom is pretty square, but the top is rounded. And if I turn it sideways, you can possibly see that it's like the heel of a sock, okay? Yep. Little heel right here. That's meant to cradle the head. So before you start putting a patient in a Hoyer lift, you want to assess your sling, assess the bed, assess the room, take a look at what you have to work with. Look at your patient, find out what you're working with that patient. Some of you will see this type sling, and there will be a hole in here. And the hole is for their bottom, so that there are some slings that are mesh, and that hole cutout is for their rear end, so you can actually get them up, set them on a bedside commode, or lift them up and clean their bottom. But that's meant for your benefit there. So when you see all these different type slings, sometimes that's overwhelming and you're like, oh my goodness, how do I use that? Let me show you another sling. One you may still see from time to time. And they'll come in all different colors. But I think that the most common one is the one we just shared that's in a mesh with those different colors. This is another one that you may frequently see, and this one will scare you a little bit until you start looking at it. This one also has the soft side and it has the heel. I can show you that pretty well. There's like the little cradle that goes behind the head here. It has the softer side and the side with the tag that's rougher that goes away from the patient. It still has hooks, but it doesn't have as many choices, okay? And then when you have these little pieces on the end, those have a different contraption that would fit around your leg. You are rarely going to see these very often. But when you see these, they usually have a picture. This one does on the back of it. The other thing is on the back of this, there's always a tag. Get that close enough to you where you can see it. It has the weight limit on it. So you always want to assess it and see what's the weight limit on your Hoyer lift. Not only on your sling, but on the actual lift itself. Most Hoyer lifts have a weight limit of around 250 to 300 pounds. They do make bariatric Hoyer lifts that will lift heavier weights than that. But you just want to make sure you know what you're working with. So a good assessment by your RN who's come in and established this plan of care is very helpful for you, that you know how much they weigh. At your Hoyer lift, you're going to hear them talk about some of these parts in the video that we're going to watch. I'm trying to get this where the whole thing will show for you. So first off, this is the part that's going to do the lifting. And most of us, when we see this and we get nervous, or a patient see this and get nervous, it's because this is metal. There's chains here. What are you hooking me up to? It's very frightening. So the more that you can talk to your patients and tell them, this is what I'm going to do, this is how it works, and you go through it step by step, and don't rush, but make sure you feel confident in, if something doesn't look right, you stop. You lower the patient back down to the bed or to the chair, and you restart. So this is the bar that actually does the lift. We have the overhead piece here. These are your driver handles. I'll try to turn it a little bit so you can see that. These are your driver handles. We have a spreader bar at the bottom. I'm going to move it where you can see it better. This here is your spreader bar. And what it's doing is it's spreading the legs of this Hoyer lift for you. Figure out which direction I'm going to make it show for you. So see how when I move that bar, it makes the base of it narrow. And when I open it wide open, it makes it wider. And so the wider it is, the more stable it is. The more narrow it is, it feels, it's not unstable, but it feels to you unstable, and it's a little bit more difficult to drive at times, okay? The next piece, I'm gonna get you a little closer so you can see. Yes, ma'am.
So in your advice is to have it more wider in most cases then, right?
We'll talk about that. Yes, so the wider it is, the more stable it is. Mm-hmm. It's just like when you and I are standing, the wider I spread my, the more stable I am, the less likely I am to fall.
Okay.
So yes, for the most part. But there are times when you have to make it narrow to fit under a bed. You have to make it wide to fit around a chair so that you can look the patient into the appropriate.
Depending on the space. Okay.
This is an older model, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see, but we've got the pump here. It works on hydraulics. So there you go. Now you can see it. So as I pump this, you should see this bar here raising. Okay. And the way it comes down is there's a valve right here. And when I turn it to the left, it will lower it. If you watch, it's coming down very slowly now. When it's weighted, it comes down much faster. That's important, and it will continue to come down until you close that valve off. So when you do the video, I want you to watch and see when they raise the person up and they lower them down. One of the things I see that folks run into is they forget to turn that valve off. And if you don't turn it off, this bar can continue, to lower down on the patient. And they may say, oh, that hurts. And you have to quickly know why. That's why. It's because of this. If you're lowering them and they're going too fast down, it's because this is weighted and you turn that valve wide open, it'll drop faster. So it's graduated. When you turn it gradually open, it's going to lower slowly. So I'm trying to give you the pieces of this so that when you watch the video, you have a better understanding, and then we'll demonstrate it together. So this is the lift, this is the part, and the chains that we're going to hook to the sling. Our spreader bar, spreader is at the bottom. This is our spreader bar that makes it wider or narrower, our pump and our valve and our handlebars. Any questions about those parts? Okay, let's watch this video real quick. It's about a 10-minute video, and then we'll jump in and we'll demonstrate. If you can't hear it, tell me.
Lift is an object, it's kind of big. It works for people who cannot stand or cannot transfer.
Can't hear it?
Sort of assistance.
It's low.
Just one person. Otherwise, people
I think the sound is as wide open as it's going to get. Can you hear it at all?
I've seen the video before, but no, you can't really hear it.
Okay.
you need to give us a hand here and show us with the wireless how to use it. And the first thing I wanted, wash your hands with soap and water, front and back.
That's better.
Okay.
That's better. But
Okay, thank you.
your words. On your knees.
And I talk to people and take them every step of the way. And some people are afraid of these wireless, but once they're on them, they find out that it's not so bad after all. It's like being on I don't know, a swing chair for a few minutes. So what you're going to do is take this sling like you would a chuck or anything like that, and gently curl and roll it under her back, center it over her body, so that there's some under her area.
The shorter the loop on the head, the more upright they will sit when you lift them. The longer the loop, they will lay out more. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And then the top one was. We want to make sure we put our hands across our chest and make sure our body parts are in a good spot and safe so that nothing gets hurt. People get hurt in these if they, get their feet caught, so be careful. Okay, and then still up. And you're not going to sling off the head and keep going back in. So she's nice and secure. We got this thing ready to go. So ready to open. Lower the bed just to get the down from the sling up.
Yeah, that's okay.
Get a little more stability. Work with it. And once she's off the bed, just kind of take the sling with you. And tell the person that you're just going to be moving them off the bed over to the wheelchair. Just and I'm coming across the room with the sling and the wire. You may, sometimes if you have to, people, it's good to have to help you, or if you don't, work with what you have, just kind of slow. The wire is coming through. And patient legs are open just for stability again. You may have to take your leg rest off the chair so that you can get around it. And if you have another person to help you, it's really a great idea to have them because when you get over to the chair, I don't know what you're looking for. But when you get over to the chair, you want to have the person sit nice and upright. And adjust this chair. It's better to get behind the chair, close enough. Push it all the way back. And then you're going to gently push it back on. It's easy to do. Off of the chair. Okay. When you do that, take the sling off. And the person stays on the sling. Until you're ready to go back in bed. And when you're ready to go back in bed, you go right back and you do it totally opposite. We'll take us the wire away. Make sure she's nice and secure. She looks ready for the chair. When you get just go back. Stop. Ready up. And reverse and go right back into bed.
Thanks, guys. All right, let's stop sharing. Okay. Any questions about that?
Transfers often so that you become proficient at the task before you try to lift a resident.
Sorry.
Practice lifts from bed to wheelchair or chair, from chair to bed, and flow with them. Read and understand the owner-operator's manual. Safety is most important when performing.
It helps when I stop the video, doesn't it? All right, better now. All right, great. Questions about that? One of the things I wanted to bring up, did you notice what I think her name was Julia, was the patient. Did you notice where her feet were when they were lowering her down? Julia kind of moved her own feet. That's something we have to be cognizant about because some of our patients, their feet are stuck. They don't move very well. We always, when we're lowering them down, it's like keeping your head on a swivel. You got to make sure, is their butt going back into the seat? Are their feet where they're not going to get hung up? Where are their arms? So you just got to be slow. So when you're moving them, don't rush. When you rush, that's when mistakes happen. But if you take your time, you'll spot these little things that are happening. I'll give you an example later on when we do this about once I had a patient, I'm lowering them into the chair and I wasn't paying attention enough. And I had them too far back into the seat of the chair and the chair started to tip backwards. So you always have to keep an eye on what's going on, moving it slow so that you know how is the patient and the environment reacting to this Hoyer lift transfer. So we're going to demonstrate now, and this is a real world situation because we have a bed that is not electric, a bed that has full rails, not half rails. So this will be pretty much about the hardest setup you have, but that's okay because you guys run into that in the field, right? All right, Lori, if you will get on the bed, and this will be the head. Go ahead and lie down on your back, please. So when your patients are on the bed, you're going to get this sling underneath them, the same as you would change the sheets. Okay, so you're going to ask the patient to roll over if they need help. You're going to have them roll over. We already talked about the rough side. The side with these black loops back here is the side that goes away from the patient's skin. We identified the head, and you want the head supported. Where this little heel, it looks like the heel of a sock. where you see that heel, that should go right about the base of their neck, okay? Kind of where their shoulders meet their neck. That's where you want that at. So what you're going to do is roll that up under them so that the soft side will be near them. Okay, Lori, Miss Lori, roll on over and roll back. Roll this way, and we're going to pull it out. Okay, roll back on your back. Now, if only all our patients move that well, right? All right, Miss Lori, bend your feet up for me. Good. Now, can you raise your bottom up? Good. I'm just, and let it back down. I'm just straightening out the sling so that it's correct under her. When you get it positioned, take a minute and look at it. Make sure, is everything looking correct? Is she in the center of that sling? And the answer is yes. Is her head supported? At least are her shoulders supported? If you have a patient who is extremely advanced in their disease process, they can't hold their head up at all, you have to make sure that head is fully supported. So we want to make sure before you start lifting them, do they look okay? And right now the answer is yes. So we know they're on the correct path because the soft side is to the skin. We have our multicolored, let me get that where you can see that, our multicolored loops that we're going to hook to those chains on the bar. Thankfully, the new ones don't have chains, so they're far less scary. All right, so as you can see, we're going to put this under the bed. When you're going under the bed with this, you want to make sure where's the cord to the bed, because if you run up on the cord, it may stop. You can just move the cord and it'll flow under the bed better. Okay, tell the patient what you're doing. I'm going to move this right over your bed now. In full disclosure, I have not, this is the first time I've used this Hoyer lift, so this is a very real situation here. We're going to get this position so that the bar is kind of over about mid-chest, okay? Now, we've got, on this particular model, it's an older one that has chains with the little hooks at the end. When you have this model, the metal hooks, where you can see those, you want those to go away from the patient because you never want anything going towards that patient. Now, we talked about the loops here on this particular sling has a blue, a green, a purple, and a black loop. So the black is the longest, the blue is the shortest. So I'm going to demonstrate for you that I'm going to hook Lori up on the blue loop, which means for her shoulders. So both will go on the blue. Both of her shoulders will. The legs and the shoulders do not have to go on the same one, the same color. So Miss Lori, if you'll fold your arms over your chest for me, that'll give you something to do with your hands. Good. So the shorter the loop, the more folded she's going to be. She's going to be more like a taco. If I put both of them here on the shortest, I'll lift her up just like a little taco. But we want to lift her in a seated position to put her in that chair. So we're going to lift her with the blue loop at the top and a longer loop. I'm just going to go with the next to the last one, the purple one at the bottom. Again, the newer models are not going to be this difficult. So if you can do it on this model, you got it. Any questions so far? All right, so I'm going to double check. I got my valve closed. We're just going to start pumping. Miss Lori, you're going to feel your body start to kind of sit upright, and it's okay. I've got you supported. And when you start raising up, just keep your arms right across your chest. This one's a little bit of a short pump to it. Now you see how she's coming up and her head is actually This is a good example for somebody who doesn't have good head control. We're keeping her head fully supported. All right, now, she's starting to come up a little bit. Now that I have her secured, I'm gonna just take this whole rail off. Remind the patient, you're fully secured, you're okay. Encourage them to let you know if something doesn't feel right. And if something doesn't feel right, we'll stop and we'll let her back down, okay? Now this is gonna be interesting because this bed's got a guard on the edge of it here, but I think we can make it work. So I'm gonna spread the spreader bar out so that the bottom of it got wider. It's easier to drive now. Miss Lori, we're just gonna slide you right off of here. Unfortunately, our hospital bed does not lower or raise. And the best thing to do is for you to actually do this yourself. Okay, because when you do it yourself, it's okay. You keep your hands on your shoulders, Miss Lori. If the sheet comes off, that's okay. And see if I just gently slid her off of there. I apologize. The view for you is not great right now. Can you bring the chair over here? I think they'll be able to see better. So hopefully you can see that, and if you'll just kind of change that angle so that they get the best view, that'll be great. Hopefully you can see that the base of this is spread out as wide as it can be. I'm gonna turn it a little. You're okay?
Nope, it's not gonna work. Hold on.
It's okay. Just the laptop is all you need
Yeah.
to change the angle of the laptop. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping a hand on her. And when you do this yourself, you will have a greater comfort level as to what is difficult and easier about this. Right now, I kind of like this position with her legs out to the side because I know they're not going to hit this bar. For patients who have contractures and their knees stay bent or their ankles are twisted, you have to be really careful. Go ahead and let your knees bend. So now we have her back here to the chair. We're just going to tell her what we're doing. Miss Lori, I've got the spreader bar going around your chair. And I'm just going to move your legs a little bit, okay? And I'm going to get you positioned right where that chair needs to be. And this is the valve. If I turn it too wide open, she's going to go down quicker because her body weight is in it. But if I take my time, it'll go slow. And if we go slow, then we'll have a chance to adjust as we need to. So as she's going down, I'm just watching her feet, watching where she's coming. We're pretending here that this is a wheelchair. No, you just say, do you feel okay? Do you feel like you're in the chair?
I'm just slouched.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I did is I cut this valve off so that we could stop it. And I can come around back here and I can slide her back in the chair a little bit more. Does that feel better, Miss Lori?
Thank you.
Did we practice this at all, Lori? Not at all. So this is all 100% on the fly.
That's right.
Now you see how this is continuing to come down. If I don't move this, that's going to come down on Lori's head. So as you're letting it down, move it forward and then turn it off. Because you only have to let it down enough that you can take the hooks off. Okay? Once you take the hooks off, you can go ahead and pull it out of the way. I always recommend keeping all 4 chains in your hand. And you can pull it away. This sling is best if it stays under her. Because then when it's time for her, when she's sat up, she's had her lunch, she's Now she's got to go potty and go back to bed. If the sling is still here, we hook her up and we do the exact same transfer back to bed. Now, most of the slings are going to be that mesh type that was in the last video. And those are perfect, much better than these because they will breathe. And that's so much better for the skin. The skin integrity needs to have that airflow. If the patient is somebody that fiddles a lot, and let's say they have some dementia, you want to get all of this tucked up under that chair. Get it where they can't mess with that, okay? These Hoyer lift slings can be thrown in the washing machine and washed, especially the mesh ones. They're very easy to wash, and they wash much better than these thicker ones. Questions that you have? I know you have questions.
So the recap where the loops are, the three, the blue and the
Yes.
other color, you said one goes on the blue, yeah, the strap, right? One goes on the blue. What was the other side? Was it not on the same blue to blue? Wasn't it down or something?
Good question. So the ones on the shoulders need to be on the same color.
Okay.
The ones on the legs need to be on the same color. But the upper body and the lower body don't have to all four be on the same color. So in this example, I had the shoulders on blue and the legs on purple.
Okay.
I allowed her to kind of sit out more. If I had put it on the longest loop, so if it's hard for you to see, I'm trying to get, this one is blue, this one's green, purple, and black. So if I use the longer one, she's going to be laid out more. The shorter the loop for her shoulders, the more I'm lifting her upright into an upright position.
Okay.
That makes sense? So that's why I said on the legs, you really don't want the shortest one for the legs because that's going to lift them like a taco. And nobody's comfortable being moved like a little taco. So
which one did you recommend for the leg again? Was it or you just according to the weight?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's different for just about every patient. In general, I like that shortest one for the shoulders or second to the shoulders.
That makes sense. So you can lift them tighter. Okay.
Yes. And I like about the second longest one for the legs.
Okay.
I think that's the most comfortable. The patients are in more of a seated position. I think they're a little bit more comfortable and less frightened. But then if it's a patient who can't help you at all, you might be better off to keep them splayed out, and you might want the longest loop for both the shoulders and the legs so they're laying more. And then if you have a second person like a wife or a husband or a caregiver that can help you guide this towards the chair, you can engage them to help you. But for me, I like to plan on, I'm going to do it 100% by myself. So if I'm going to do it by myself, I try to get them in that seated position. Does that answer your question?
Makes sense. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Tell me what has been, and let me mention something else. Carpet. So how many of y'all are taking care of patients and they're on this nice hard surface floor that's easy to roll on and easy to clean and level? That hardly ever happens either, right? The floors are unlevel in these old houses. They have humps in the floor. You may have carpet that's 4 inches thick that you're trying to plow through. When you run into those situations, the best thing to do is to ask your caregiver, your family member, to go to like Office Max, one of the Office Depots, something like that, and get you a giant desk mat. Tell them to get you the biggest one they can afford and put one under the bed so that it's easier to roll. And if you need to, you can have two. You can have one under the bed and one under the chair. It's kind of like a splat mat almost, like for kids. So what it does is it makes that carpet now a hard surface and much easier for you to roll this Hoyer lift on. Other questions or issues you've come across when you've tried to do a Hoyer lift? The big thing I want you to know is that the Hoyer lift it's daunting when you first look at this. If you haven't done one in a while, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's been a good many years since I did a Hoyer lift transfer. It can be a bit daunting, but I want you to think about this as a tool, okay? And this one, again, is an older model. The newer ones are like the one that was in the video. So the newer ones are going to be padded. This bar is going to be padded, and they don't have chains. They'll actually have like 2 hooks on each side. So it's much simpler. It's less parts to move. And occasionally you may get in a great situation where you have one that's even electric, and you just push the button and it goes up, and push the button and it goes down. But the big thing is all in your planning and making sure that you plan, that you look at your situation, set up so that you don't have to do a 360 with that patient up in the air. But the less you have to move this Hoyer lift, the shorter distance that you have to drive it, the easier it will be. So for example, just pulling this out and coming straight here to the chair instead of turning them all the way around will make your work a lot easier. The other piece is just to keep in mind about how this is really keeping you safe. It's going to take you maybe 10, 15 minutes to do this by yourself, but it is far easier than doing a max assist transfer, because in the line of work that you guys do, it's hard work. You have to take care of your own body. If you take care of your own body, that's how you continue to work. So you have to protect your back. And this is a great tool to help you protect your back. Any other questions or concerns? Any tips you've had or comments you've had from patients and family members?
Don't be hesitant. Don't be hesitant. You can do this. Just slow down, think about what you're doing. You can do it. It looks like an intimidating piece of equipment, but I think it's doable. It's just slow down, think about what has to be done, think about safety for the patient, and you get it done.
I would highly encourage you, if you get a chance, to come into the office and practice this yourself, so that when you know what it feels like, you're a much better driver at a Hoyer lift. You'll do much better at that. You'll be much more confident in it. Then you can also talk your patients through. Like on this model, I would never tell a patient to hold here, but the newer models that are padded and there's only 2 hooks here and here, if I have patients that are fidgety and they can't stop reaching for something, I tell them, hold right here, hold it tight, and that gives them some control. And they feel much more secure. It's okay if they do that. You have to remember, we have to customize what works for each patient, right? But reach out if you have questions or concerns, reach out. The video I showed you came through YouTube. So I would encourage you to pull up even more YouTube videos. It's tremendous how much you can learn just from a couple of YouTube videos. The one I pulled up is only like a 10-minute video, but there's a lot more there. So I would encourage you to watch those. But as Lori said, just be careful, be calm, take your time. If the worst case scenario, you pick them up off the bed and you think they don't look right at all, I'm not going to take them off of that bed. Don't take them off of the bed. Lower them down, reassess it, see what you need to change to make it work. But if you do it yourself and you go through it as a patient and then you go through it as the caregiver, you're going to be totally different after you've ridden in a Hoyer lift transfer. That's all I have, unless y'all have other questions.
Come into the office, I'll be your patient.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, then I'll stop the meeting. Is that okay? Or do you want to share a few more words, Joan?
I don't, but I tell something that's very important. Oh gosh, I don't have my mask
That's
on.
okay.
Give me
You're
one
okay.
second.
We'll step back. You come on over.
Okay. I would love your feedback. I would love your feedback if you have value for continuing education with what I call hands-on. And if there's something specific that you need help with, And guess what? We're recording this and we will share it with you. So I'm the type of person, I'm a very visual person, and sometimes I need to be shown something more than once. So feel free to ask questions. Like the lady said, come by, touch it, experiment with yourself. Or, we'll get somebody here, I'll be your guinea pig. So just give us your feedback, okay? Any questions? All right, guys, I'm gonna let you go unless anybody else has got any other questions, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
later.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This is